What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Crowd Pleaser page. We got some big stuff going on today, so let's get at it. So first things first, back on the Cadillac. So this morning, the wife ended up having to leave. She was going to help me today, but she had to leave, so I didn't have time to video it. I put the bolt in the balancer today. So what I ended up doing is I used the pinning tool. I forget exactly where I got it, but I pinned the crankshaft. That was a piece of cake minus one broken drill bit, which is my own fault. I actually slipped and kind of torqued holy crap, the drill. Can't talk this morning. My arm rests in here and I slipped and my arm went down and I snapped the drill bit right off, so that was great. But luckily I had another one. But drilled that was a piece of cake other than the broken drill bit. And then what I did is I put the old balancer bolt in from my factory balancer. I had her get in the driver's seat, put it in 4th gear, and push on the brake as hard as she could, and I torqued it to, I think it was 120, and then I torqued it again to 240, which is what it's supposed to be torqued at. So once I torqued it to 240, then I pulled it back out and I redid the process with the new bolt I got with the pinning kit. So that was all a piece of cake. So today, probably what I'm gonna end up doing, so I'm gonna pull the supercharger back off. It's just sitting there. So I'm gonna pull it back off. And I don't know if you can probably see this harness is really tight up against this. So probably what I'm gonna end up doing is I'm gonna unwrap it here. I'm gonna redo this wire right here. And I'm gonna come up maybe a little bit higher up. And same on this side, it's a little tight, which causes it to be really tight under here. So I'm gonna try and redo that just a little bit. Just to make it a little bit cleaner. And then now that the balancer's all torqued down, I'm probably gonna start putting the front accessory stuff back on. So I'm probably gonna put the water pump on today. I'm still undecided on what I'm doing with the power steering, because I've been doing a lot of reading. A lot of guys say they just get a lot of junk in them, and with as many miles as this car has, it probably just needs a flush. So I'm probably gonna try that. I'm probably just gonna try and flush it first and see if it fixes it. And if it fixes it, then, I mean, I'm not gonna mess with it. So, but if it doesn't fix it, then I'm gonna have to replace it, and I'll do that later. I'll deal with the wine for now, until I figure out what I'm doing. But so I'm gonna work on the front accessory stuff today, work on the wiring. So this is the map sensor, or back here. This is the intake temp sensor, and then this is an ambient temp sensor, which I'm not gonna use, so I'm actually gonna take that off. But on the factory LS6 intake, the map sensor is on the back, so I have to extend that harness for it to reach this. So I'm gonna work on that today, and I gotta get a plug for this, but I actually have to take a couple wires out of my original mass airflow, and then run them up to here. So I probably won't mess with that today, just because I don't have the plug, so I don't wanna take it apart and then not have a way to go ahead and fix it. So yeah, so that's probably the plan for today. And then I got some big stuff to share with you at the end. Stay tuned. All right, so I got an update for you. So I was gonna make you sit through the whole time I was trying to unravel some of my wiring stuff here, but it's got some bad news. So I got all the crap off of it, but you can see it's just a ball of wire. I was kind of worried about that when I was getting into it, but some of the plastic was coming off here anyway, so I wasn't worried about it. I was like, well, I'll just clean it up either way. But yeah, so the whole me moving it, that's not happening. I'm just gonna try and make it work. Guys have done it, so I mean, I know it works. I was trying to, all this stuff is brittle and falling off. I was just trying to make it look a little bit better, but it is what it is. So I'm probably gonna end up, I mean, yeah, look at that. It's just unwraps. It's a mess. So I'm probably just gonna redo this Y here. And I'll probably rip off all this extra crap. anything that's hanging off, and I'll probably just redo it, make it look nice. You know, I want this to look nice. I want to, I don't want it to be, it's not gonna be a show car, obviously, because, I mean, it's not, it's far from it, but, you know, want it to be as nice, and I want to do it right. So, yeah, I'm just gonna redo this, but I'm not gonna make you guys sit through that either, because it's kind of time consuming and kind of a pain in the butt. But like I said, all I'm gonna do is re-wrap it with some black tape. I'm kind of worried about the black tape, you know, and the heat and everything, but at the same time, I mean, it'll be fine. So, all right, well, I'll check back in with you in a minute. All right, guys, so what I found was, so this is the map sensor off of the supercharger lid, and this is the connector that I cut off of my factory harness. So it looks like they're not the same. I read that you could just extend this harness and it would work, but now, I mean, they're two different style plugs. So I'm gonna have to order another one. Most likely what I'm gonna do is I'll go ahead and extend the harness now. I'll go ahead and run the wires, and then once I get that way, I can go ahead and bolt the supercharger on. And then once I get the pigtail, the connector, I'll go ahead and wire it up then. So a little bit of a disappointment, but at the same time, it is what it is. So I'll go ahead and order that. And when I order my intake air temp sensor connector, and I'll work on rewiring that at the same time. So on to the next thing. All right, so now we're getting into the water pump. I've got everything. I made my extension harness and everything, so that's ready to go. So I got both water pumps sitting out here. So now you can see the difference of what I was talking about in the first video. So here's the one I showed you off. This is the factory LS6 style. LS1, I'm sure is the same. And then here is the LS3 LSA style. As you can see, the port, let's see if I can, there. So as you can see, this port is on this side for the LS6. For the LS3 LSA, it's over here. That's the only difference, other than I actually didn't realize it has these other mounting points here. I don't know if maybe there's another pulley there or whatever. And I might be using them for the LSX drive stuff, but so I'm gonna go bolt this on now, and we're gonna go from there. I got plenty of gaskets because every kit I got for this thing came with its own gaskets. So, but I'm gonna swap this over, and then I'm gonna put it on. All right, so I'm ready to put the water pump on. I got the bolts painted a little. I just sprayed the ends of them a little bit, just to make it look a little bit better. So there's a lot of stuff on here from the last seal and water pump that was on here. So I'm just gonna take a razor blade and go over it real quick. All right, so now that that's done, I can go ahead and put the water pump on. One thing you gotta be careful of when you're using a razor blade on this though, especially on an aluminum block, is you wanna make sure you don't get it too much of an angle, because you don't wanna scratch the surface. You wanna keep it nice and smooth. Like if you're cleaning some of the, like your heads, like your aluminum heads, if you're using a razor blade, normally what I do is I go just past a 90 degree, like perpendicular to the block, and kind of just scrape. If you get too much and you start digging in, you'll scratch it. And you could, which could cause a water leak or a leak on your intake if you do it up here on the head or whatever. So you got to be careful doing that. But that should be it. So let's go ahead and put the water pump on. All right, so the water pump's on. One thing I did just notice, because the new water neck's over here, this hits, which I actually don't know what I'm doing with that yet. That originally went to the throttle body, but the LS2 throttle body didn't have that. So I don't know what I'm doing with that yet, but I'll probably be able to just bend it a hair. I mean, it's not going to take much. Just bend it just enough to just to be able to fit there to get a hose on that. So I painted the pulley too, the tension that was over here. So once it dries, I'll put it on. But for the most part, that's it for the water pump. Water pump's done. The next step, I'll probably get the supercharger on first before I put the power steering on, because I don't want it to be in the way and you know, cause issues. So I guess the next thing is to put the supercharger on. So let's do that. All right, guys, so we're ready to put the supercharger on. So one thing I had to do, so these are the adapter plates for this. So LS3 and LSA style intakes and superchargers are a square port, as you can see here. So these are a cathedral port to a square port adapter. So those are square port. And this is just for the guys that don't already know this. And these are a cathedral port. So like most of your LS1, well, not most, all LS1, LS2 heads are cathedral port. Now there's obviously different variations of iron blocks. There's a couple different iron blocks, I forget what number they are, that you can get the 6 liter with a square port head on it. Actually, there's one right there. It's a Gen 4 iron block. I think it's out of a van. It's got crap piled all over it, but that's actually going to be a stroker one day. So all LS1, LS2 are cathedral port. So you need these adapters if you want to put anything type of square port supercharger, or I mean, I don't know why you put a square port intake on it, but if you wanted to do that, you could. So these, when they, holy crap, we're gonna cut that out. So to put these on, you have to, there's a set pin here that needs to go away because he didn't put an access hole or anything like that in there for it. So what he was saying is you can either grind it off or you can break it off because it's a hardened pin, so that means it's brittle. So basically, all I did, so I stuck this punch right on top of it, and I smacked it with a hammer, and it broke right off. And actually launched itself somewhere. I don't know where it's at, but oh, actually, look at that. There's half of it. But so got to do that. So let's go ahead and put these seals in. Shouldn't matter which way they go. It's good. So it has this locator here, which he has a nice little opening there. So stick that right in there, and it'll slide right in. All right, so now that those are on, we can go ahead and I've never done this. I don't feel like reading all of his instructions because there's like 5 paragraphs. So I'm gonna assume that I can set these on here. That one's a little crooked. Don't want that. Ooh, they're all a little crooked. Yeah, you definitely want to make sure that stuff's installed correctly because you don't want it to cause a leak. I'm going to set that one on there. Not like that. Yeah. So all these kind of, I don't know if you can see that little corner popped out on all these. Got to make sure that's flat. Well, that's not going to be an issue. That'll be fine. So obviously, you get all this together, you don't have to pull it back apart. That would suck. I don't know about you, if you're doing this, I doubt you want to do it. I sure as heck don't want to do it. So kind of line them up. I got my harness out of the way-ish, about as much as I can. It's probably gonna have to sit down on that, but it is what it is, because I couldn't move the harness like I was telling you guys about. So let's take this monster over there and see if we can set her on there. Oh, set it down for a second. So right now, looks like it's just sitting on this. Let's see, you gotta come forward. Now it just needs to come straight down, really. Oh, I'm twisted. There we go. There's that. Okay. Is that actually where it's supposed to be? Well, heck. If that's actually where it's supposed to be, that's not bad. It actually fits a lot better than I expected it to. I may try and... This wiring harness is a little weird. I'm probably gonna pick it up and see if I can put that on the other side over here, have it go under. It'll look a lot better. Can we do that? We're gonna try it if we can. That would be nice. Okay, you need to get out of there. All right, I'm probably gonna undo this, but that's a lot better. Actually, that doesn't look bad at all. So everything, oh, gotta slide forward a little bit. Everything actually looks like it lines up really good. So this is kind of the, once you bolt this on, there's really not any going back unless you want to take it all back apart. But yeah, I don't know about you, but I do not want to take it back apart. I want to make sure all these are clean. I gotta go look at the torque specs for it, and there's a pattern. I'll show you guys what the pattern is. But so I gotta go find that, and then we'll go from there, because I mean, really, it's, well, it's actually off right there. For the most part, that's it. It's on there. That's how it's gonna be right there. So that actually looks pretty nice. So, well, I'll go find that stuff, and then I'll be back in, well, in no time for you guys. Now, kind of feel down in there if you can. If you got big sausages, you probably won't be able to, but try and line everything up here. Make sure all the ports look like they're lined up. And then once you do that, grab yourself a socket. Of course, I'm not gonna be able to get that off. And a 10mm or whatever size you need, and run them in by hand. Make sure I'm lined up here. Yep. Actually, so I'm gonna put this on its lowest setting. I'm gonna run these in. That's gonna take forever. All right, guys, so I actually messed up. So when I did the time lapse of me just running these down with the impact, I accidentally left it on time lapse. So I went through like 5 minutes of explaining stuff and talking about it and torquing these down, and it was all in the time lapse. So you didn't hear any of that. So I'm kind of coming back. I didn't realize it until I started editing the videos. So I'm coming back to kind of walk you through it again. So the first thing, so I ran them in, and then they all need torqued at 44 inch-pounds. Make sure it's in inch-pounds, otherwise you will break these bolts once you do the final torque. But you want to make sure this is all lined up. So run, well, I think I said that in the last video, but make sure it's all straight, and then kind of snug it down. Don't over tighten it because it actually doesn't torque very much. So then do the first pass and 44 inch-pounds. So all you're going to do is start in the middle and then work your way out. So you're going to go this one, this one, this one, this one, then come over here, do this one and this one, back over, and that's all you're going to do. It doesn't really matter, you know, you could start on the other middle one, you know, it doesn't matter. But and then for the final pass, you're going to do 89 inch-pounds. Do the exact same thing. Start in the middle, you work your way out. So it's, I mean, it's pretty simple. 89 inch-pounds isn't much at all. So that's why you want to make sure if you do run them in or anything, don't overdo it, because 89 inch-pounds is not very much. So one thing I did, I think I was talking about, has nothing to do with torquing down the supercharger, but one thing I did is for these heads, so I torqued them down to 70 or 80 foot-pounds, whatever it was. Excuse me. So what is actually recommended from factory is actually goes off of degrees. So basically, I want to say it was like you torque it, you have your foot-pound torque wrench. This is just, I got the inch-pound one here. So you would torque it to 40 foot-pounds or whatever it was. I don't remember what it was. Torque it to 40 foot-pounds, and then you would go another 90 degrees after that, and that's that's done. That's it. So I want to talk about that a little bit. So ARP just recommended the torque spec, so that's what I did. Plus, I also don't have the angle gauge for that. But so when you torque something, it actually goes off of friction. So if you actually think about it, if like where these bolts are, if that surface wasn't smooth, maybe it was grainy, you might hit your torque soon and prematurely. It might not actually be at that torque spec. So you want to make sure that surface is extremely clean. You know, you don't want anything on it, because it kind of makes sense. I don't have a preference on the, you know, for the heads, for the angle, you know, measurement versus torque, because I've only ever torqued heads. I've never done that angle thing. So it's, you know, that's just what GM did from the factory. But if you think about it, so like I said, if it's not clean, you may not get the correct torque. Whereas an angle, which obviously if it's still dirty, you know, that's still not good. But when you torque it, if you think about it, if you go 90 degrees on that gauge will show you, it'll be at 0 here. So you torque it and it goes to 0, and then you go 90 degrees. So if you think about it, that's probably a lot more consistent than torquing, because there's so many variables for torquing as far as, like I said, for friction and different stuff like that. Whereas if you do go by a measurement, it's probably more consistent. But that was kind of the stuff I talked about. Oh, and the other thing was, if you're new to torquing stuff, make sure you always back off your torque wrench, because it will screw up the spring and everything, and then it'll just start being inconsistent. So always back it off to 0 and then lock it when you put it away, and then put it in a good spot wherever you store it. Don't just throw it around, because you want that stuff to be accurate. So I think that was it. I don't think I talked about anything else. So we're gonna move on. All right, so time for the big news. So with the car originally making like 380 horse to the wheels, I didn't really need much of a tire. You know, I had a 275 on it, which was actually kind of balled up. They're in the basement. I don't have them with me, but they were kind of balled. So I actually, I still kind of broke loose, but it would have been enough if I had a good 275 tire. But I ended up picking up a set of Dark Stars from a guy off of a C7. So what I'm going to end up doing is they hit, I had a picture of it, I'll see if I can find it, but they hit the face of this, because this sticks out. You can see it. I mean, it's just, it sticks out a couple inches here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to a base model caliper, which is a lot smaller, and the rotor is a lot smaller here. So I'll probably end up taking this shield off and then put all that stuff on. And then I should be able to clear the dark stars off the C7, which will bring it in a lot more, but it's also a wider wheel, so it'll probably for the most part be the same fitment. It'll just be wider. But I got to get tires for that still, which I've been researching a lot lately. But then I was thinking about it. What better to go with a nice set of rears and a nice set of skinnies up front? So I ordered these yesterday and got them in this morning. They're just the Jags, the SSR, the 5-spoke. They're actually really nice. I was kind of surprised when I got them, because the Jag stuff is, I don't want to say cheap, but it's cheaper, versus if you were to get the Weld or whatever. So this is the 17 by 4.5, and then the Chevy bolt pattern. And this is the Dark Star, so it is 17 by 9.5 or 10. I want to say it's 9.5. I'll have to double check that. But either way, I think they'll complement each other pretty well. I'm going to see how they look on the car, but I may end up having to try and color match them a little bit, because this is like a chrome black and that's just a gloss black. So I mean, you could probably see there's a difference. So, but it might be fine. Who knows? But that's pretty exciting. So we're going to shed some weight off the front, and we're actually going to shed a good bit of weight off the rear too, because the wheels I had, I mean, they're a good wheel, but these are a lot lighter. So I'm pretty anxious to get this stuff on and see how it does and see how it looks, because I know putting skinnies on the front and having this aggressive tire on the rear, it's going to look really good. So I'm pretty excited about that, but we'll see. But that's probably not going to happen until spring. So get a little bit nicer weather, get some, be able to even drive the car, because right now there's no point in getting a set of tires and letting them sit for a couple months. So probably going to put those back in storage and wait until spring. But that's all for today. Just a short video walking through a couple things on the engine and talking about the wheels. So stay tuned, got a lot more coming. All right, see you next time.